What's up, y'all? Welcome into today's episode of Forte Catholic. I'm so excited that you are here. We are at episode 299, or as we know, the one before the big celebration of episode 300. So for episode 300, we're getting all the co-hosts together. So, of course, for episode 299, we had to bring in one of the OG4 co-hosts, Shaun McAfee. He was one of the 4 original co-hosts for the show before Liv took his place and kicked him out forever. But he's back now to be the guest co-host for this episode, just because I wanted to reminisce and talk to him. It had been a while. He moved back to the States, so it's a lot easier for him to co-host now. So absolutely love talking to Shaun again. And also, we've got my new friend from Grassroot Catholic on the show. He's a traditional who's not mad. He's not a mad trad. He's not angry about it. He's a good Catholic guy, and I like him a lot, and I like his approach to sharing traditional Catholic values. So we had a great conversation. So we hope that you enjoy today's show. If you do, please hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. We would appreciate it so much. Enjoy the rest of the show. What's up? You said all right. I knew you were going to piss me off. What's up? And welcome to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Stroll. That is Shaun McAfee. He's back. One of the OG co-hosts. One of the original 4. Shaun is back after, it's been over a 3-year hiatus that you've been gone.
Yeah. Oh my, yeah, it was before COVID.
Yeah.
Which was good timing, actually, but yeah, I got voted off the island somehow.
Yeah, I needed the break from you. I just didn't.
Because you couldn't deal with me and COVID. It was like 2 pandemics.
Well, really,
personal pandemic.
Really, it was you and Liv are the 2 people I couldn't deal with at the same time. I was like, I can do.
So you had to choose one of us.
I can do one of these a month. Yeah, exactly.
Life chose one of us.
Well, it was life, but it was more of it was just so inconvenient. Life was so different. So let's take a walk down memory lane. Yep. The last time you were on the show, I looked it up. I believe it was May 29th, 2019.
No way. Was that the last regular show that I was co-hosting, or was that the last time I was on the show?
It was the last time you were on the show, but it was like you had been a regular co-host, just like we have our 4 co-hosts now that people are familiar with. So if you're new to the show within the last last 3 years, you don't know who Shaun is because he hasn't been allowed here. But Shaun was, whenever we moved to co-host. So long story short of the show, it was a live radio show and it was just me as the host for like a year and a half. And then I realized that was boring. And so like my producer started talking to me, and she kind of became the first co-host. And then she decided to quit on me, like most people do in my life. So I was like, okay, I need to have co-hosts because I'm better at talking with people than just talking by myself in a padded room like I am now. So I was like, I need people to talk to. So I called 4 people: Father Anthony, you, John, and Allison. And I asked you to be the co-host. Y'all all said yes. It was still a live radio show, Shaun, and for a while, and you were calling in because it was live radio from Italy.
at like 10, 11 o'clock. What was it, Tuesdays or Wednesdays?
Yeah, well, we were recording on different days. It was a Tuesday night. I think my show was at like 6, 7, or 8 or something. And so that was like the next morning. You were in the future telling us what was coming for us,
Right, exactly.
Kind of like COVID hit Italy before the rest of us. Like you knew the future of what was happening.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I remember now.
So yeah, dude, it's just crazy how much things have changed. It does not feel like it's been 3 years. COVID kind of did that. It feels like it's been about a year and a half, which is, a year plus the last 2 of COVID. So
right. Yeah, lots has changed.
It has. One of the biggest being you no longer live in Italy, which is a big shtick of the show, is I called you a fake American all this time. Even though you worked for the American government, you didn't work here. So I said that you weren't a real American. So
finally you acknowledge it. It took 3 years.
So where do you live now?
We live in New Orleans, or really south of New Orleans, about 20 minutes from the city.
That's, I believe, in America. It's mostly in the ocean. Let's be real.
Kind of. I think some of the Cajun people down here like to think that they're like separatists or something, but yeah.
But you're back. That's the big news, is you're back in America. I'm so happy.
That's right. And we got to meet each other.
We did. So the men's retreat that I've talked about over the last few weeks, I invited you. I invited like 25 other people. They all said no, so I finally had a spot opened up for you. And
Thank you.
You're welcome. But no, like I had been wanting to meet you in person. We had never met in person. You were one of the only people that like I was like this invested in, where it's like I've had guests and stuff that I haven't met on the show, but like we talked once. But like somebody that I was invested in, like we talked on the show for years regularly, and we played video games together. We had never met. Like for most people, it takes about a year. But you lived in Italy. It's not like I was just gonna like randomly stop by your house.
And you were gonna come to Italy, right? You had the idea for a pilgrimage.
No.
With the Blaze, right?
Oh yeah. I thought you meant the pilgrimage that you started and invited Father Anthony and John to lead with you, but you didn't invite me. That's what I thought you were bringing up.
Now you know how it feels to be the 24th person.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm. Never mind. I might have an announcement similar. I was going to clap back. I might have an announcement coming up soon about that, Shaun. Maybe.
I know what you mean, and no wink.
Yeah, exactly. I almost revealed something. That was funny. Because I wanted to clap back so hard. But we did. We finally met. You came on the retreat. We had a great time. You drove all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to Central Texas. And I had one major takeaway. One or two, really. I was just one.
I know one of them.
One, I was just so happy to see you. I was just like, it had been so long. And two, I thought this whole time you were like 5'7".
Why?
Because you look and act 5'7".
All the 5'7" and below people are right around, and they're very offended right now.
Well, most people are offended. That's just the first group of people.
How do tall people act?
Like me. Everyone should act like me because it's
okay.
But you're tall. Are you
6'2"?
Yeah, I'm 6'2". You're like you're my size. And that's weird. I think it's because you're Irish and you were a foreigner, I thought you were Italian. I thought you were Irish. Definitely didn't think you were American. I just thought you were a little leprechaun, or as we called you at the retreat, leprechaun. And
yeah, leprechaun.
I just thought you were this little tiny little guy and you're a real boy.
I'm a big kid.
You are a big kid. I was just blown away by it. Like, how can I know somebody since 2016 and not know how large of a person they are?
Yeah, that was the first thing you said. You opened the door and you're like, yeah, you immediately recognized me. And then you're like, wow, you're tall.
Yeah. Well, it'd be weird if I didn't recognize you. Who are you?
I was like, I almost didn't even get into the door and the deer was like about to hit me in the head. I was like, hey, let me shake your hand while I dodge all these animals.
Well, to be fair, the 5'7" people would have hit their heads on deer too. They were everywhere in that place.
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Too many eyes, as Father Sharapa said.
Exactly. Oh, it's so weird to hear somebody call him Father Sharapa on this show.
Father Anthony.
No, he's just Tony, but that's a whole that's a whole other thing. Oh man. Speaking of Italians, there you go. So you're back in America, and you have been a beacon of hope for me, despite the fact that your life has been pretty crappy since you came back to America. So timeline for those of let's see, how many people are alive on the planet? Is it 8 billion? Is it 7?
It's over 10, I think.
Is it over
10 billion?
No way.
Yep. Google it.
Okay,
we gonna have a Google race right now?
Are we? Yeah, this is exhilarating podcasting. How many people are alive?
Did you ask Siri or did you type it in with your thumbs?
I typed it with my thumbs. 7.96 billion people. So 8 billion people. Yes.
I thought we were at over 10. No. Okay, you win.
Yeah, of course I win because
I owe you a can of Yoo-hoo.
Yeah, you're thinking like a 5'7" guy instead of a 6'2" guy.
Okay.
So 8 billion people. So going back to the original things, for the 8 billion minus 1,000 people that don't follow you on social media and don't know what's been going on inside of your life, you moved to America, and 7 days later, was it exactly 7 days later? What happened?
It was 13 days later.
Oh, okay. Then I don't feel bad for you anymore. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. But what happened 13 days after you moved to America?
Yeah, we bought our house on August 16th, and then 16 years after Hurricane Katrina, which I was in Mississippi in Biloxi.
I thought you said you were like you were just in the middle of Katrina, just like flying around
in a plane.
Yeah.
No. No, I was in it and survived it and lived through about the next several months after it because I was in the Air Force station there in Biloxi. And we bought a house here, and 10 days after we bought the house on 29 August, we got flooded and a bunch of wind damage from Hurricane Ida.
Like to the point where yeah,
We had to demolish the whole house.
yeah,
We lost
yeah,
everything.
you lost everything right after you moved here. The timing was terrible. You bought it's a lovely house, like literally the first like the two posts that I saw were like, here's Shaun back in his back in America. Here's his family in front of the house. Beautiful home. The next post I see, and it's gone. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no, like it felt very Jobian.
Well, I work for the Army still, and so they happened to be taking an aerial survey of a lot of the damage in the area, and I just happened to get an aerial photo of the flooding around my house, and it was disturbing to see for the first time because it was about a day before I was actually able to see it. And we were studying that photo for probably hours, just trying to determine, like zooming in, trying to see if we could see a water line, just hoping that water didn't enter the house. And we got back on probably day 3 after the hurricane, day 4, because they finally started opening roads back up, and there was no alligators and snakes everywhere. Literally, there were things like that going on. And I entered the house. There was some water on the floor. There were frogs in the house and spiders and whatnot, and okay, some pests. I determined that there wasn't much damage, and I'm not sure how much of the story you want, but after about a week, we had a mold inspection, and then we had finally our insurance come out. And it turns out that they determined there was about 3 inches of water. And I'm thinking, okay, no big deal. This is just a couple inches of water. It all got out within probably 6 hours after the storm. It didn't sit around for very long. We talked through this with a bunch of experts. It turns out that even if you get 1 inch of water in your house, you have to destroy the first 4 feet. Anything over a foot, you have to destroy the next 6 feet. Anything over 3 feet, you have to destroy the next 8 feet. So we had to destroy the first and throw out everything 4 feet and below, which is, go look around a house. It's everything, all of the electronics, everything. You have to destroy all the doors, all the framing, all the walls, all the woodwork, everything, all your electronics, all your appliances, and all of that within 3 days they took to demolish it. Was out on the street. We saw FEMA just watching our life, strollers and baby stuff and backpacks go away and get put in a big junk pile. It was disturbing. It was disturbing for probably about a month, and then the work started, and that's when we started to have some real fun.
Yeah, and so I talk to you, periodically throughout this whole process. I forget how long. It's always one of those things. I talked to another friend who's going through something different, but not a great thing in his life, and it's like when do you call? You know what I mean? It's like, do you want to give people space because they're dealing with stuff? At the same time, if everybody gives them space, nobody's calling. It's like, where do I rank in the list of people that should call or whatever? And so I called, I think sometime within the first couple weeks or whatever, and I talked to you. And even there at the beginning, I think it was within the first week, maybe 2. You were still, or you were already, if not still, in high spirits. You were like, yeah, like this really sucks, but like we're gonna get through it and things are gonna happen, right? And
Yeah.
and it was like it was cool on like I called you maybe 3-4 times, right? Maybe the last one was about the retreat or whatever, but every couple of months. The next time it was like you realizing that you said that's when the work started, right? You've been working on this house. It's been what? Not that was August, so 10
That was
10
August.
months.
It's about 11 months now.
11 months. And like
we're still not done.
Right, you're still not done, and like you just got it livable a couple of months ago. Like,
yeah, we started. It's a 2-story house, and the bottoms you probably shouldn't have even been walking through it with fumes and stuff in the air. You just probably shouldn't be walking through it. Nails everywhere, really, and then construction going on. Probably wasn't till January that we started to occupy a few rooms, and I mean like partially occupy, just to spread the family out a little bit. And then probably maybe a month ago, our kitchen finally started to be rebuilt. We finally got plumbing. We were washing dishes in our bathroom sink here in a master bathroom for 10 months. I finally 1 month. I just broke down about 2 months ago before we actually got a dishwasher installed. Finally bought my wife just a one-load little dishwasher you can find on Amazon. You pour water in it, you put a little soap in it, and you can wash like 7 plates and a few spoons. I finally just was like, let's relieve the stress here of washing dishes constantly. 5 kids, right? And so, yeah, has it been livable? Yeah, it was livable after January, but fully functioning house only started maybe a month ago. So, yeah, 10 months.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And especially for those who did listen back in the day, back when you were on, it's like most of what you and I did is like you were one of the biggest like foils for me. You were essentially what Liv is now, of like just the like messing with me and comedic stuff and just kind of messing with each other and everything. And like, so I don't think I saw like, and I knew you're a faithful person. You know, you're a Catholic author. You've written all these books, like, and I know you're like really smart. But I never really knew like the depth of your faith until this, right?
I think maybe I didn't either, Taylor.
Yeah, well, we didn't know the depths of your faith until the depth of the water in your house continued to rise. But
yeah, a few inches.
Yeah, exactly. But no, for real. So like, I called you, whatever it was, first week or two, I called you, and I was like not shocked, but like not shocked as in like, oh, I thought he was a bad person, but like shocked that you are reacting that well, that quickly. Because I probably wouldn't have, right?
Yeah.
You were in high.
There were some dark moments.
I'm sure
there were some dark moments.
I'm sure there were, but not when you talk to me, because I'm obviously the light in the darkness in your life. But
that's right.
But
I needed it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I called a few months later, and I think that's when you realized that it was going to be a longer and harder process than you had originally thought. But even then, you were still in good spirits and like, this sucks, but God's going to take care of it. We're going to just do the work. And then even like 8, 9 months in, I call, and it's the same thing, right? Where it was just like for me, I don't know which would be harder for me. Like the initial realizing this crap, like essentially you move from Italy and you move back to essentially what was a third world country after 2 weeks, right? Where you have nothing. and then you're like, oh, this is going to be resolved soon. And then it's not resolved soon. And it's like that kind of that long suffering thing. And that's where I really get like have trouble is the long suffering things. I can suffer for a few weeks.
Right.
But the long suffering.
I got a lot of coaching right up front. And there was, like you say, there were a lot of phases of learning what the next year would look like. I mean, our insurance folks, they were previous contractors and they did the evaluation. And the lights started to go off on what the kind of work would look like as far as scope was concerned. And then I said, well, how much time would this take? They said anywhere from 6 months to 12 months for some of this. And this is post-COVID world. So, who knows? I mean, we're still waiting on our appliances, Taylor. We're still waiting on them to be delivered. It's going to be very soon, but we're still waiting. I compare it, whenever you're driving and you're like, Google Maps says an hour and 5 minutes. And you're like, okay, I know I can get this down to 45 minutes, because just no stops, you're in the middle of the night or I don't know what. And you look at your GPS and you're like, I know I can beat that. Well, I kept telling myself, well, there was all the positive spiritual stuff I was telling myself, but as far as like the practicality of this whole process is concerned, I'm telling myself the whole time, I can beat this timeline. I can get to a place of normalcy for my family quicker than what everybody else says. And I didn't. Every step of the way, everything was pushed out. Everything was delayed. Like I said, there were a lot of dark moments, and most of them were in the first 4 months. But I tried to keep a cheerful attitude, especially in front of others, especially in front of my wife, especially in front of my kids and my coworkers. Because I don't know, I guess I'm like leader first. There were a lot of moments where I would just wanted to cry, and maybe those are good reasons to cry, maybe those are bad reasons to cry. But maybe crying is good sometimes. But I definitely never lost the faith and the control and focus on what needed to happen. Thanks be to God.
Yeah, it was amazing that you told me that you didn't cry through this whole process, except for when you just randomly watched Charlotte's Web with your family, and you just
everything got watched.
Yeah, exactly.
All the babies.
Oh man, but dude, it's crazy, and like it's been crazy watching it from afar and getting these periodic updates and like realizing after like a month or 2 months, it's like, oh my gosh, they're still dealing with this, and so it was really good, one, to meet you, but also to hang out with you, just to like, one, it was great for me, but then two, also knowing like it's been a pretty crappy year for you, and to know that you could just come and hang out for 4 days was pretty cool,
It really was good. Thank you. I know I was 24th on the list or wherever. I don't know
exactly.
the real numbers, but no, really, that was a great break because we hadn't. That was honestly the first vacation in like 11 months.
Yeah.
And it needed to be one that started off with a spiritual bang. So thank you.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We all enjoyed it, man. It was great. It was great. So, I do have one bone to pick. After your sob story, I'm still gonna say I'm mad at you.
Okay.
You texted me a couple of days ago that you had the opportunity to do something incredibly nice for me, and you refused to do it. I would like for you to share right now what you texted me about that you refused to do for me.
Call you?
No, come on. You have to remember. You found something while you were driving.
Oh my God.
I'm so mad at you.
Yeah, incredibly nice. Yeah, lead me into sin. So I'm driving back home from Nebraska, where I used to live, and I'm just in the middle of the woods in northern Louisiana, and I see a sign. It's blue, big letters. It says Pope Taylor Drive or Pope Taylor Street. And I'm like, I'm already like passing it, and I'm like, I got to make a mental bookmark to get on Google Maps and like get a screenshot for Taylor. It took about an hour of work to go up and double tap Google in order to get down the street enough to figure out where it is. Finally found it, told you I could have done it, and then you said, go steal it.
Yeah. It would have taken 36 seconds of work? Stopping, turning around, and going to rip it off and giving it to me. Shaun, if your people are watching,
it's got to be a clean operation.
No, dude, it would be hanging right above my head right now. It would be the backdrop for the show. You don't understand. One, because it would say Pope Taylor and it would just boost my pride. And two, because I would love to just promote something stolen that a former co-host of the show got for the host.
Yeah, well, you might get your chance. You might get your chance to get it.
If that thing isn't above my head by the time your house is livable, I'm gonna be so angry.
And Shaun, you're 6'2". Reach up and get it.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying not to laugh when you were talking about the if it's 1 inch, you have to take out 4 feet. I'm like, oh, that's the size I thought you were. But if it's a foot above that, you have to take out 6 foot, which is about the size that you actually are. So, Shaun, we're gonna take a break. And you're not special. Just because you're the guest co-host for the first time in 3 years doesn't mean we're not gonna throw to a guest interview. We're gonna throw to a guest interview, and then you and I will come back for the final segments, just like you never left. I'm not treating you special at all. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. My friends, we did it. We hit one of our 2 goals over on YouTube. We have over 1,000 subscribers now, so thank you to everybody who subscribed to our YouTube channel. We have one final goal. The final goal is to have 4,000 watch hours within a year. Now, how do you do that? You just watch the videos. That's all you got to do. We are over halfway there. We're at like 2,300 hours in the last 12 months. So we've got all kind of great stuff for you there. So whether it's this show, we've got full-length episodes of this show dating back to like the last 100, 150 episodes, something like that. We've got our Catholic Perspective series, which is all about pop culture stuff, only found on YouTube. We don't talk about that on the show. So we've got all kind of Marvel and Disney stuff. 2 of our upcoming ones are one on Coda, which won the Oscar for movie of the year last year, about the deaf family. Absolutely incredible movie. Talking about the new Thor movie that's coming out. Those are all coming out over the next few weeks. So make sure you go hit subscribe. Check out our videos, watch them. And I mean, honestly, if you just want to hit start on the playlist on your computer and then like go to work or go run some errands or stuff, it still counts as watch time. So it would be really helpful for us. So thank you guys. YouTube.com/Forte Catholic. Check out what we have over there and, take a watch. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and I am joined by a brand new guest, somebody who also has Catholic in his name. Maybe we're related somehow, but Keith from Grassroot Catholic is here. Keith, this is the first time we ever met. We met 20 minutes ago, and we didn't even say hi. We just started dealing with technical problems, and we solved those, and then we greeted one another.
It was just as if we were friends already.
Right, exactly. We talk about that all the time. How like the internet, social media makes it feel like we know people. It's like I literally see you every day, and we've never spoken before 20 minutes ago.
So true. It's so true.
It's very creepy, man. You think like your great grandparents, they come back to life for a day, and they're just like, why are you stalking all these people? Leave them alone. It's just a very silly thing. But
right. So you watch people talk to themselves on a camp. Okay.
Right.
Turn it off.
Exactly. So they're like, we enjoyed it more when we were dead.
Yeah.
So I started following you maybe 9 months, a year ago, something like that. And the reason that you caught my eye very quickly was because about a year before that, I unleashed something on this show that I had been holding in for a long time. That the rad trads were pissing me off. Like it was just constant like internet radical for people who don't know, people who are super radical about being traditional, like a lot of times like pre-Vatican II, Latin Mass, altar rails, like those sort of things, which can be good things, but like just how they talk about it was super hateful, and it was just like this. It just made me so angry. Where like, so I kind of, the whole point of this show is to be comedic and fun, and I was finally just like, like I was just tired of it. And then I found you not too much longer after that, someone who is calling for a return to tradition, but doing it in a way that like, oh, I like this guy. He seems kind and loving and Christ-like. So I was like, it immediately endeared me to you. I think, especially because of the place that I was in, of like not finding a lot of people like you. So that's why I invited you onto the show. So I'm glad you're here.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
So we talk about how over here our whole thing's about the joy of the gospel and bringing people back to the joy of the gospel, and I've seen over and over again you're not just your tagline, but something just literally you see it through everything that you're doing is you're trying to invite millennials, myself, back into the traditions of the church. So I guess first of all, why? What why is that the thing on your heart?
I don't know. I have no idea. I keep asking myself that same question every single day when I'm like trying to figure out what I'm going to be posting. Like, why am I even doing this? This is no. So I'm a millennial. I'm a geriatric millennial. So I'm kind of on the higher end of millennials. But and much like anybody that grew up millennial, probably like yourself, we grew up in a church that didn't have much of traditions. And I'm not going to be the one like Vatican II did this. I've read the documents and I actually kind of like what was written in the Vatican II documents. Just the execution was poor. I could go on about that. But the idea here is like to get millennials back into church, back in Mass, because if I hadn't done the research myself, if I hadn't gone out and just looked, I probably wouldn't be going back to Mass, or I wouldn't really have much knowledge of like the tradition, the teachings. And so I've been trying to like find ways to like share that without like, sticking my nose up or talking down to people, because nobody likes that, So that's just kind of the gist of it. Just like trying to share what I've learned over the course of the last like 5 to 10 years, things that I don't know many people millennial wise or would remember or know. So
yeah, it's interesting that for both of us, we are reacting to something that we didn't experience when we were growing up, right? Like I didn't see a lot of joy within Catholicism. I saw that all in my Protestant friends. I was like, why do they have a monopoly on that? We had it first, And then you're saying like you and I would think for myself too, like not a lot of the traditional stuff in the parish that I grew up in. So it was something that was lacking. And it intrigues me. It's just not something I've been much around, right? I've been to a Latin Mass, I think once, I think maybe twice. And it's just one of those things that for me, it's like, I like hearing things in English. I've been to a ton of Spanish Masses. It's not anything against Latin. It's like, I didn't like the Spanish Masses either, because I'm just a words person. I like being able to understand what's being said, right? But one of the things that I was telling you this beforehand, one of the things that I love about being Catholic is that there's a ton of different ways that the churches tells us we can pray, whether it's, Mass, obviously being the source of summit, the most important. You can do that in English or Latin or Spanish or whatever, right? You could pray the rosary, you could pray liturgy hours, you could, pray in your own words. Like you could pray, there's all these different ways that the church has. And it's like some work for some people and some work for others. And like, obviously we all need to go to Mass like that, like that's kind of the baseline, but like some of these other devotional prayers, it's like, yeah, you can like some, I can like some, but I think that's one of the beauties of the church is we have all of these options, right? Yeah. But so like, what are some of the things that you would like to see, like in Mass, right? I think that's one of the big things that you talk about a lot. You talk about reverent Masses. So what does like a reverent Mass mean to you?
Well, I think in order to like explain it would be like, what is reverent really, like, what does the word reverent mean? And going to Latin, the origin of the word means to revere, to be in awe of. So if you're going to mass and you don't have that sense of awe of what's happening, then I would say that you're not at a reverent mass. Like if you're seeing something that you see on a day-to-day basis, and I mean, like liturgically, music wise, like if you something that you kind of hear similarly on the radio, that's, and I'm trying to not mince my words here, but that doesn't seem special or just like awestruck. So, and that goes with like the construction of the churches. Like, am I like being awestruck about like the high ceilings and just the beautiful art? Or am I in a cafeteria that looks like it dates back to like the early 1980s with the stains on the ceiling and the fluorescent lighting? So it's just, there's a lot of these things. Obviously we can't really do much to change, but I think it's eye-opening when we start seeing some of these churches and seeing some of the reverent masses online that have been streaming for the last couple of years. I think that's opened a lot of people's eyes.
It sure has. It really has.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how bad it was some places, like I knew the parishes that I grew up in, and a lot of the parishes I'm involved in aren't close to like a Latin mass, but they're not some of the ones that I've seen online either that we've made fun of on this show. It's like it's somewhere in between.
Yeah,
and that's somewhere that's where I tend to land on most stuff. It is somewhere in between, like too charismatic for traditionals, too traditional for charismatics. It's like I'm somewhere right in the middle. The music thing's just because I'm like totally with you on the architecture, right? Like we all know the whole history before people could read.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the big ways ways that people could connect with God is going to this beautiful place. And I think that's still very true. Like, we both have kids. Like that's a big thing for my kids, right? They go in, they stare at the stained glass, especially the one where Eve's barely clothed. They love that one. They're like, what's going on up there? Like, I thought this was church. Like, how is that allowed? But the music thing is interesting to me because I think we might disagree here. Because and I will caveat this with, I think a lot of modern music is not good and is not good for the mass, right? But like I know, and I don't know where you stand on this, but I know that I can imagine, like you like chant and more reverent music and those sorts of things. You can tell me if I'm wrong, right? But here's where I'm at, right? Finding a balance with the things that are old and the things that are new, the whole ever ancient, ever new thing, right? Where it's like, for me, like as a music major, it bothers me, I guess, when people say, oh, we can only play old stuff. I'm like, I studied Beethoven and Bach and all these guys who were literally hired by the church to write a mass. They did it on Monday and they played that on Sunday. And it was beautiful and reverent. And like, if you listen to it now, you're like, oh, it doesn't sound like something you hear Monday through Saturday. It does sound, but it did back then. Right. So for me, it's like, how do you try to find that balance? Or maybe you don't find the balance. So like, how do you wrestle with like the church for many, many years did modern, quote unquote, modern music and old music, and here we are where essentially the church decides which one it's going to be. It's either all going to be old or all going to be stuff that came out recently.
It's tough because a lot of people are drawn to more of the modern liturgical music, and I don't necessarily call it bad, but when I think of like Gregorian chanting, a lot of the stuff that's played on an organ, to me, that just seems more timeless, where it's not necessarily going to go out of style, whereas it feels like we see still a lot of the folk music from like the 60s and 70s. Right, and it's like, can we at least get up to like the 90s, early 2000s? Like, if we're going to do modern music, let's just get with the times, please. So, I mean, my preference, and it's just literally my preference, like, is just more of kind of the older, timeless liturgical music with Gregorian chanting and the organ.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is like being the music major, it's like I've been trained in both of those and I've done both of those, right? The music, I think, is one of the things that is very it's funny to me. It might not be funny to everybody, but it's like when you're like a Catholic musician and you're hired in to come do music at an event, you have no idea what they're expecting, right? So essentially I just ask, right? And I'm like, what do you want? Because I'm a trained operatic singer, and I sang when I was in college. It would be me and the organ and no mic, and I could hang, right? Like I can do that, but at the same time, like there's been other times where it's like, I'm doing the like, Matt Maher and Hillsong kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's been other times where I'm kind of with some of those people that I think we would both agree are kind of crazy. And I'm doing a little bit more of the folky stuff because that's all their parish has ever known. So it would be really weird for them to come to like a mission trip or a conference or whatever.
Yeah.
And for 3 days, they're just like, what is going on? Right. So like, I've had to like become all things to all people. And like, it's what I felt was right. Right. But it's always been kind of a funny thing for me. It's like, oh, I got to be able to fit in wherever. Right.
Yeah.
And like even at our parish, it's like we have our folk mass, right? And the people that love that mass love it, and the people that don't avoid it, right?
Yeah.
And then so I don't know. Even there, I kind of struggle with the options thing, right? Where it's like, okay, we have whatever 5 masses in a weekend. It's like, okay, if you want to have one because this is what you like and how you connect with God, fine, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's one of the things that because one of the videos that you do on Instagram, I forgot to mention that. So that's where I found you, Grassroot Catholic on Instagram. Oh, yeah. He's got way more followers than me. You should go follow him and make him feel even more important than I in comparison to me. So, but so you started answering one of my 2 questions about some of your more popular videos. You do reverent masses, and then you're like by state. And you're like, it's usually to the Walking 500 Miles song, and you're pointing and stuff. It's very silly and very Instagrammy. But my 2 questions were: 1, I started asking, like, what does a reverent mass mean to you? And you started answering that, right? If there's anything you wanted to add there, that'd be great. And then 2, how do you know? You don't live all these places. Do you have minions working for you? Like, do they pay you to say they're reverend? I don't know how does this work?
I just guess. These aren't even real parishes. I'm just like, what would sound like a good parish that's reverend? St. Agnes, that's a reverend parish. And people are like, yeah, I love St. Agnes. I go there. Like, that was a freebie. No, so I don't know how I found this website. It's called CatholicReverendMass.com.
Oh, okay.
Or it's Catholic Reverend Masses. I can't remember if it's plural or singular, but I was just looking at that, and it goes like state by state. And I looked at my own state and I was like, wow, this is pretty, like, I can recognize a lot of the parishes that I would refer to as reverent. And they have their own, I don't know how they have some sort of, I don't call it an algorithm, but they have like all these, what you call it, the things that they look for in a particular website, a parish website. The one thing I know is that, confession times is a huge one. And I can't remember the exact other ones, but so I was like, hey, I messaged him like, hey, look, I'm gonna make some reels, some silly reels about going to like different states. I'm gonna use your website. I'll tag you, but like I just let you know I'm gonna be doing these. And they're like, oh, cool. And so I just started doing them, and then like about the 3rd state in, I'm like, what am I doing? This is gonna take so much work. 50 plus states, 51. Are we at 51 states? I don't even know how many states we have, clearly. So it's just now I'm at, I think I did Kansas, which got a lot of people upset because the background was actually Kansas City and not Kansas. Or a city in Kansas.
Okay. I saw the backlash, but I didn't understand the backlash. But I get it now because Kansas City's in both. Yeah.
And I was like, look, I just search YouTube Kansas City walkthrough, or that's probably why, Kansas walkthrough, 4K walkthrough, and I just download the first thing that I see. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And a lot of people got offended by that. So.
Well, that's very well. If that's the things that people are yelling at you, you're doing well as a trad.
That's true. Yeah.
If it's not me trying to ream you out about something actually that matters, I guess that's good.
Yeah.
So obviously I said at the beginning, like I like the way that you go about things, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's one of those things that like the content. When it comes to like Catholic content, like the content of our faith, we can't argue about, right? Now, there are some preference things for preferences in prayer and preferences in mass. We could disagree and be fine. But for me, it's the method of how a lot, like my mom used to always say, I'm sure a lot of people's moms say, it's like you catch more, catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right? You catch more. I was like, bees make honey. That's
catch
very confusing.
More bees with honey that they make.
On Saturdays afternoon, but just the whole idea of like if you really want people to be behind whatever it is that you're selling, obviously not selling anything, but like behind the things that you care about, like you don't beat them over the head with it, right? You try to invite them in and that sort of thing. And that's one of the things that I appreciate with you. So was that something like the method of how you're doing this? Is that just who you are? Was that a response to something? Was it like something that you did see missing in the internet? Like, talk to me about the method.
Yeah. So, there's many great Catholics out there that share what's going on in the church and like all the bad stuff, which I struggle with. Like, do we really need to know all of this stuff? Like, is it doing more harm to people that are looking to join the faith and they see all these bad things that people are sharing and are talking about? And they're like, what am I doing? Or do I want to, like, let's just get back to basics. Like, let's talk about that stuff, because a lot of that stuff has maybe been pushed under the rug or shoved under the rug, or maybe just people don't know it because their parents didn't think that, or maybe they thought the priest would do the heavy lifting of teaching, and maybe the priest thought that the parents were going to be doing. And so like the children or millennials that I try to reach out to, they don't know some of the details of why we believe what, or what we even believe. So, I could jump in and put in my 10 cents of like, oh, that the church is on fire, it's a sinking ship. Or I can be like, hey, this is a great sinking ship to be in. It's the best ship to be in, regardless. So that's my thought. Like, and even my wife has
this is the best sinking ship to be in is one of the greatest quotes about Catholicism I've ever heard.
Hey, right? But I have to say my wife has been instrumental in helping me not go too far, because I do tend to go dark sometimes. And so like, she's like, sometimes I'll kind of share some of the things that I do before I post. And she's like, don't post that.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Like, all right, fair enough. I'll figure something out, so
that's funny.
It helps. Yeah.
That's very funny. Yeah. So what's the goal? What's the ultimate goal? What are the things that you are trying to accomplish with like it's essentially this ministry that you're doing online?
That's a good question. And I've thought about it periodically. I like having the interaction within the Instagram page. I'm planning on kind of expanding maybe like long form videos on YouTube, but I'm sure like how time consuming everything is when it comes to just the media stuff. But I would like eventually to be in person in like events, like conferences. I think that would probably be like the end game, I guess if you call it that, of what I want to try to do, and try to get millennials really just back, like I said, back to mass. So,
yeah. So, how do I word this question? What are the biggest things from tradition that you see that are missing that you want to bring back? What are the things that me and my audience could do to help be a little bit more traditionally Catholic that you see missing in general Catholicism?
I would say a lot has to do with just some of the different types of, I guess, prayers or devotions. Like, I had no idea what the Angelus was until maybe like a few years ago. And I went to Catholic school. From first grade all the way to 12th grade. Okay. I went the whole gamut, and I had no idea what the Angelus was.
I was a public school kid, and I learned it when I went to my first Catholic school, which was my university.
That's not fair. That's not fair. I'm jealous. So there's just like stuff like that. And like Byzantine Catholics, I knew like of the whole separation, but I had no idea that there were Eastern Catholics that like had a divine liturgy. And I went, we were going to that for some time, and I was like, why was this never talked about? Like, this is amazing. This is such a great experience to get like kind of like breathe from the other lung a little bit. So there's like so many different aspects of our Catholic faith that are maybe just not hidden, maybe just not talked about enough. That I think it really needs to maybe shine a light on a couple of times for people to see and see how much beauty is in the whole church, as opposed to just like the Roman Catholic that we're all kind of used to. So.
Yeah. All right. My final question, and it's a 1-part statement, 1-part question.
Yeah.
Because there's been one thing, I've been following you for a year. One thing that I saw you post, I didn't like. And then it was a while ago. And then recently you seem to have contradicted yourself. you seem to have, because now all the things that you're saying about it, I agree with. So you are the first traditional person, like trad, that I've ever heard talk about the importance of reading scripture. I've never heard that from like somebody who's super traditional. It's usually more, it's all about the mass and like your prayers and your devotions and stuff. I've never heard about reading the scriptures. You had an old post right from the beginning, and it kind of irked me. It was like, it was a what if. Do you remember this Catholic what if thing?
Yeah.
And it said, it was like on the Marvel, and it caught my eye because I just love the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, what if in an alternate universe, the Gutenberg never invented the printing press and we never got the scriptures, and it was like everything would be better because we'd all just be simple Catholics that don't know anything. And I'm like, I don't know. I think scripture is pretty important. And now recently you've been talking about the importance of reading scripture. So the final thing we'll talk about is scripture as a trad.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, so that was me trying to figure out, like, what if, right? Would things be a little bit better? Yes, and probably no, I guess, when it comes down to it, because there's some pluses and advantages of the whole printing press whatsoever. But it was just more or less trying to think of ways to think of different universes or whatever, and come across that. I do think reading scripture is absolutely important, especially like the Bible in the year has opened it up to so many people. And I think we should crack open our Bible a little bit more. But I do think the whole personal interpretation of the Bible has gotten out of hand. And I think that's probably what stirred up that what if. But do I think that'd be the greatest universe to be alive in? No, not really.
Yeah, it's like it's funny framing it that way. I hadn't framed it that way. It's like, is Taylor being able to be a Catholic and read his Bible, is that worth literally hundreds of thousands of different denominations of Christianity? I'm like, oh, that actually makes me think a little bit more. But selfishly, yes. Selfishly, the answer is yes.
The answer is
yes. Yeah. But anyway, dude, it's the one thing I wanted to pick at you about.
Yeah.
But
take away.
I could literally sit here and talk to you forever. We've already gone over time.
Really?
Well, we will definitely have to have you come back. But not only, I think I was telling you beforehand that not only are you my favorite like trad account ever, you're one of my favorite like people to follow on Instagram, period. Like, the algorithm knows that people who are on Instagram, you know, you open it up and like there's like the top 5 little stories, and it always shows you people that you interact with a lot. Like, you're always on there because you post 87 times a day, but also because I interact with it a lot. So Grassroot Catholic, everybody should go follow it on Instagram. And you said that you're trying to expand onto YouTube, and I saw that you have a YouTube page. Anywhere else other than Instagram, which I know is, Jackie, where your biggest following is, that you want to point people to?
Yeah, begrudgingly TikTok. But
nice.
if you're already on Instagram, you don't have to go on TikTok. It's just it's a cesspool. So I'm like trying to like reach out to that, but I don't know many millennials on TikTok, so it's kind of like, well, it's a test. You're on TikTok. Okay. Well, aside from you, Taylor, maybe a few others. So TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, MySpace. I can't think of anything other. That was a joke. Millennial joke.
It's okay. It's okay.
I
didn't know if it was a joke because I know people that actually do have them still, so I wasn't gonna laugh just in case.
Wait, it's still around.
Yes.
I can't make a joke. Okay.
So
that was
a Catholic comedian who comes on the show. He's the Christmas show every time. He's his website is a MySpace page. He built his website to look like a MySpace page. It's very funny.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, okay. So everybody needs to go follow, especially on Instagram, Grassroot Catholic. Keith, thanks so much for hanging out. And like literally, I could talk to you. We could have done a whole show together. This was fun. So thank you.
Maybe another time. We'll do another time.
Awesome. Guys, don't go anywhere. Shaun and I will be right back to finish out the show. One of my favorite things about this show is the interactions that I get to have with you guys throughout the week. So many of y'all react to clips from the show or respond to things that you love, things that you didn't like, things that you thought were funny, things that you thought were intriguing, that sort of thing. And the only way that you can do that is through our social media. At Taylor Schroll on Instagram is probably where I'm most active. At Taylor Schroll on Twitter, also at Forte Catholic on Twitter, at Forte Catholic on Facebook. The biggest place for me is Instagram. We're also on TikTok, that's that sort of thing. But probably the biggest place where our community is growing is Instagram and Twitter. So if you would give us a follow, I'd love to connect with you guys and just get to know you a little bit, because this is a one-way thing. I talk to you, you can't talk back to me, or you can talk back to me, I just can't hear you. The only way that I can hear you is through social media. So at Taylor Stroll on Instagram and Twitter, at Forte Catholic on Twitter, Facebook. Thank you guys. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Stroll, and the leprechaun Shaun McAfee has returned. We talked about your height and what I thought something you were lacking in, that you're actually the same size as me. I'm so proud of you. We talked about that in the first segment.
Well, same height.
Yeah, I worded it the way I wanted to. So,
okay.
So we were talking about your height in the first segment. I had this realization during Mass the other day. These are usually where I have my deepest spiritual thoughts, is during the holy sacrifice of the Mass, right? Or the shower. Those are the two places that the source and summit of our faith, or the source and summit of me smelling better. One of the two. Okay. So, I was in Mass, and the priest was talking about Jesus, and height came up. So, and he was talking about the beatific vision. So it's like when we get to see Jesus face to face at the end of time, whether the end of our time, when we die of natural causes or being eaten by an alligator that lives in your house, or like the end of time when he comes back for all of us, right? And I had this realization, Shaun. I'm 6'2". You are 6'2". Jesus is in, because he's became man in heaven, we assume that he has his body, and his body, being a man from the Middle Ages, the Middle East, 2,000 years ago, the average height back then was about a foot shorter than we are right now.
Maybe even more.
Yeah. So I think what I heard is it was about 5'2". That's I could be wrong, but it's way shorter than the average height of a person now. And it was never said that Jesus was particularly, essentially how they did in all these old writings, whether it was the Bible or any biography of anybody around that time, is they wouldn't mention physical features unless there was something really distinctive, right? Like if you and I were standing next to each other, they probably wouldn't say anything too distinctive. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a little heavier. You have more hair. Like if I grew my hair out, we have similar colors of hair. And
right. Right. And the Bible affirms that he had no particular features that would attract us to him, and certainly tallness would have been something that would have been desirable in a person.
Right. So it's like it's safe to assume that he was pretty average height, which means that Jesus, our Lord and Savior in heaven, when I meet him, I always pictured the big God man in the sky. When I meet him, I'm going to be looking up into the heavens and seeing him. I'm going to be looking down at him because he's a foot shorter than me.
Just remember, he has a glorified body that even his own followers didn't recognize when he was resurrected. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, because they had to look up instead of even. Do you think, what percentage of a chance do you think that Jesus, because I think they would have mentioned it. It's like, oh, he came back 10 feet taller. I think he's probably around the same size. I think I'm taller than Jesus. That's incredible.
So you're going to look down at the Savior of mankind whenever you get to
it. It completely broke my mental image of heaven. Because I've always pictured him being thousands of feet tall and looking down and being like, well done, my good and faithful fee-fi-fo-fum. That's what I always pictured. And now I'm just going to be like, hey, Jesus, how you doing?
That's so interesting. You know what I always had as a mental image of God the Father was King Triton. I don't know why, from The Little Mermaid.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, but just, I guess at an age where I was learning about God and gods, that cartoon came out, and so I've always thought of God with a Triton. I don't know, Holy Spirit.
So, what you're telling me?
The Trinity, on the Triton. I don't know. I have my own weird mental images, but I don't think that Jesus is going to be shorter than me. I think he's probably going to be 1 inch taller.
Just of everyone, he shape shifts for everybody. I'm just a little better than you, But here's the thing: I'm showing King Triton now. I don't know if y'all can't see it. But the thing that isn't crazy for me is that I think that King Triton actually really works top half. I just can't believe. I just can't picture God the Father having mermaid bottom half.
Well, in most of the cartoon, he's floating on a cloud. And I mean, if you look at a lot of the imagery, like even, God the Father extending his finger to Abraham in the Sistine Chapel. Yeah.
Oh, you can't
No,
see
we can't really see it.
Dude, this picture
No.
looks so cool. I'll put it up on the video. It looks so cool. There's like a humanoid version of it. No, like I'm
Oh my
looking.
gosh.
I'm looking at all of these, and he's got these. He's got a
You're making me
mermaid.
cry, man.
Oh, dude, it's so funny. So you're gonna meet Mermaid God. I'm gonna meet Short God. It's gonna be great.
It's whatever you want it to be.
Everybody talks about the beatific vision being so happy I've always been taught because you're just in complete joy. It's gonna be because of comedic.
And for
effect.
you, it's going to be because I'm taller than somebody.
Yeah, it's like this is hilarious to me. It's so funny.
Complete joy.
Oh man. Okay. Any final thought? You don't think Jesus is going to be shorter than me?
Nope.
I want to get like some deep theologian to hear what they have to say about glorified body, because I glorified body. I think what I've heard, maybe I'm wrong, is like the best version of the body that like you were alive in. So it would be like me 10 years ago when I had a 6-pack and was 100 pounds lighter. Like, you know what I mean?
I've not heard that.
Not
the best
like me at
theologians I've heard.
6'8".
The best theologians I've heard, they talk about brightness coming out of the body, especially for Christ in heaven. Like he will literally be a source of light in heaven.
Oh, that's just
and
me
by
when I
his
take my
light,
shirt
we will
off.
have no days, or we will have no sense of days there. Those are the glorifications of, like, even the Transfiguration kind of gives us a glimpse into that. But I don't think too many theologians speculate on what a glorified body is going to be. Who knows? We don't know what that body could be, like material or a different material, like we say, maybe new colors in heaven. Who knows?
Light and mermaid bottom halves.
For some.
Here's what I want people to do. I think my idea is weird because it felt weird having that thought during Mass. I think yours is weirder. I think the bottom half being a merman is definitely weirder.
Again, he floats on a cloud in the cartoon.
I have been swiping through pictures of Triton since you brought him up, and I have not seen one cloud. I've only seen.
Okay, fine. At the end of this, oh my gosh, look at that 6-pack. I'm gonna text you after this, and I'll show you one.
And I'll show my wife. Be like, look what Shaun is sending me. No context. Okay. I have just a bunch of random thoughts that I wanted to run by you specifically. Okay. So
that's why I'm your friend. This is the content you save for me. This is 3 years in the the making.
Yeah. What I didn't mention is I had that thought 2.5 years ago in Mass.
Exactly.
Yeah. Here's the next one. Okay. You and I, because we were on the retreat together, we got to go to Mass together. Father Anthony celebrated Mass. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 times. So we went from never meeting to being at Mass together 3 days in a row. And I can't remember when this got brought up. It might have been at the retreat, but I'm thinking it was after. But somebody somewhere, I don't know if it was a social media post or a conversation that I had, whatever. It was just a random thought that I heard. And it's bothered me. It has stuck with me for a while. Heck, it might have been you. But somebody was like, if you don't remember the psalm response. So like, think like at Mass, right? It's like, the Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. And then everybody raised their hand, and then everybody says together, the Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. And then the lector or the cantor will either say or sing the verses, right? And what's your job as the layperson? Whenever they raise your hand, what do you say? The Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. And this person said something to the effect of, if you do not remember the response, you're not paying attention well enough in Mass. And I think I felt that a lot as a kid. Like, I felt like if I flubbed the words that I wasn't like being a good Mass person, like Mass attendee or Mass participant, right?
Okay.
Now I think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life, Shaun. And that includes things you've said. So, and here's why. The psalm, if I've already, quote unquote, read or prayed with that part of the verse, the Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. Now, I get that the church is suggesting we should be praying that part over and over again. They kind of singled that out. But for me, I've learned for myself, not at the expense of literally every other verse, Because if all I'm thinking about the whole time I'm listening to the psalm or praying with the song is the Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. The Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. I don't hear he shall make me lie down in green pastures, la-di-da-di-da-di-da, right? So
Yep.
I think it's the opposite. I think if you forget the psalm response, you're participating in Mass better than anyone else. Because you are, if you are paying attention to the other words. If you're on your phone, obviously that's not the case. What do you think?
I think I think you're right. I think you make a solid point that sometimes, you need to pay attention to the fullness of the psalm, right? Other times, I'll tell you, for me, I struggle sometimes not to say if the cantor is not good, but if they're not enunciating clearly enough and I don't have my missal open in front of me, which I'll admit, I don't always do that. I sometimes don't even understand what they say. And then I'll reach for it and grab it, or I'll ask my wife what they say and I'll try to get it the next time around. That's one area I struggle with the most, knowing what they're saying. And I don't feel like you should always have the missal, because the Bible says that, I don't feel like you should always have the missal open, because the Bible says that faith comes through listening, not faith comes through reading and, repeating. That was a tip I got from a priest early on. So that stuck with me. But I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a little too harsh to say that, just to wipe the board and say that, hey, you're not paying attention if you didn't, memorize it. Okay, fine, whatever. But I think for children, you said that you were told that as a kid. I think I can imagine myself in the pew. If my kid's, sitting there kind of twiddling his thumbs or daydreaming, it's kind of obvious that he's not paying attention. If I don't see his lips moving or I don't detect some sort of desire to participate, yeah, I'm going to give a little slight admonishment to him. So I think there's a good side on both.
Yeah, I think you just enjoy admonishing your kids. That's what I've noticed.
Admonishing is one of those words where whenever I'm preparing to say it, I'm like, does this word mean I'm going to give them a huge hug? Because it just sounds like that kind of word. Like my wife will make up words all the time, and they actually sound like words that could be in the dictionary or somebody's dictionary.
Right.
Urban Dictionary, I don't know. But admonishing it, every time I go up and say it, I'm like, does this word mean what I think it means?
I had that. So one of the things that you don't know about me, but some of the listeners do, is that when COVID started, one of the things that I started doing just for my own sanity to get my mind off of things, I started doing crossword puzzles. So I had a crossword the other day that got me a word that sounds way worse than it actually is.
Oh boy.
I just looked at it. I tweeted this a day ago. Guess how many likes it got? Absolutely zero.
I'll go find it and like it.
So here's what I said. I said, guys, and I tagged John Blevins. Guys, at Bearded Blevins is a turophile.
Turophile?
It sounds terrible. He's a turophile. Like accusing somebody who has worked in the church and who is a Catholic streamer and does stuff with the church. You know what it means? The dude loves cheese. He's always talking about fine cheeses and making fun of me because my fine cheeses aren't fine enough. He's a turophile.
I got to look at the etymology of that word. Why would pH file, like
TURO
other kinds of files? Yeah.
It
people have a fascination with
files.
a certain.
Yeah. That's why I tweeted.
Well, there are the files that scare us, and there are the files that like develop our passions. But yeah, that eturo. I'm just trying to detect what part of Latin or Greek does that emanate from? I don't know.
I don't either. I didn't go that far.
But that's funny, and he didn't reply to it?
No, not at all. No one
He's
did.
like, I'm just ignoring this.
Yeah, no one saw. I think because nobody knew what the word means. That's what I'm telling myself. And not.
He didn't want to take a second to look it up and give you a whip. Yeah, anyway, whatever.
Nobody wants to leave that app. Everybody's stuck there. Like a person.
He said this about John.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't get involved.
Oh my gosh.
He's mad.
He lost 1,000 followers that day. Yeah. John lost 100. Okay. Okay, here's the final thing that we are going to talk about. You ready for this?
Yep.
Okay. This was another recent mass. So sometime within the last 3 years that I had this thought. So our pastor was given a homily about, no, it wasn't our pastor. It was our new associate pastor who just got here 2 weeks ago. I'm really excited. He's a great guy. But he was talking about our souls, our souls, our spiritual lives being, we wanted to make them fertile ground for the Lord. Right.
Right.
So I was thinking about what it takes for fertile ground. And honestly, I was thinking about it because people who have followed me on social media know that we've been, not struggling like our house is underwater, but it's the opposite. We have no water here. It is we haven't had rain in weeks. Everything is dead. We've had record heat, I've lived in Texas every year of my life except for one. I've been here practically my whole life, and last week was the hottest week I've ever had. It was 121 degrees here. It was
Oh my gosh.
absolutely ridiculous. So like everything's dead. Our AC is struggling to keep up. Like it's been so like, and so it's more of a comfort thing for me. But like,
and it's mid-July.
yeah, for real. But like, it's more of a comfort thing for me and my family. But for our community, this is an ag community, an agricultural community. Like Texas A&M is like probably the biggest agricultural place. So it's a huge agricultural place. So we have people whose livelihoods in our parish depend on the crops. So like,
right.
I've never heard a prayer for rain for good crops ever in the like general intentions at mass. It's been there like every day, every Sunday for the last like 3 weeks. And it's like, it totally makes sense. Cause it's like half the people in the parish's livelihoods. Right. So it's
right,
actually been cool to kind of like, oh, this is a new thing, you know? But I was thinking about, I was like, what does it take for fertile ground? Right. And it's like, this isn't a perfect analogy, but it's what I came up with. Everybody knew it's not perfect because I came up with it. But one, you need sun. Like, obviously that we have too much of it right now, but you need sun. And we can't make sun, right? That's not something that we can make. That comes from God. So I was like, okay, that might be something like grace, God's unmerited gifts, right? I was like, we also need, the thing that we need right now is rain. Like, obviously, like I can go out and water my grass a little bit. I can do a little bit, but ultimately rain is way better, right? It's gonna seep in. It's not gonna, they actually told us to limit the amount of water we're using and amounts, all this kind of stuff, right? So like, yes, on that one, there's something I can do, but it's not as good as, God sending the rain. So I was like, oh, that's like prayer, right? Then there's some things that I absolutely can do. You talked about mowing the grass earlier, like trimming the grass actually helps with growth.
Right. Retilling the soil.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the final thing that I thought about is like, what else do you need for good soil? Manure. And the other word for manure. Sometimes you need to go through the manure of life for there to be fertile ground, fertile soil. So
Amen.
Jesus had a parable about, fertile ground. I just made up a new one. What do you have thoughts about this, Shawnee boy?
I'm just waiting for you to say the word.
Oh, sometimes you got to go through the manure of life.
Didn't Liv just have like a clip where she's like, "Can I say that?"
That was Allison, and that's why I'm trying to avoid
Allison.
it. We've met our cuss word quota for the month. One. What do you think of my?
No, that's good.
My thing.
I'm impressed by all of it. I'm glad that I think whenever I think of fertility, I'm thinking of like human fertility in response to that kind of verse. But I'm sorry you guys are not getting so much rain. I wasn't aware of that over there. I'll keep that as a prayer intention too.
Yeah, thank you. Just send us some of your water over here.
Well, they've actually talked about that, like all the way from Arizona. They're like, well, we can't get it from California because they're all kind of using it.
Right. Yeah.
The populations are so great over there. And they've talked about building a pipeline all the way through Galveston and through into Arizona just to distribute some of the water here that obviously we spend billions. I work for the Corps of Engineers, billions upon billions. You and I were talking about this to push water to the west whenever there's more than we can handle down here, right? It was in my house.
Yeah. We just need to get a tube from your house to Arizona.
Shaun's complaining about water in his house, and we can't even get our crops to grow.
Yeah, well,
come on.
That's the irony, right? That's the irony. It's like obviously yours.
Right. Sometimes it's too much. Yep.
Yours was, obviously yours was way worse. It was, we're dealing with it for 3 weeks. You've been dealing with it for 11 months. It's a different thing, but
and you talk about this, Taylor. Just one more point on that is there's the kind of suffering of not having something, and then there's a suffering of like having way too much. I'm telling you, like down here on the Gulf, I was unaware. It rains. I mean, what you would think would be way too much every day. Now, this place has been doing this for thousands of years, right? And people have been here for hundreds. But every single time it rains, the water level rises because we're so close to the ocean, and I get nervous, I get scared, and it brings me back. And I guess my point is, it's always kind of like this humbling thing that'll always kind of give me this very short-term, not PTSD, but just whatever's below that to say, okay, you're still not in control. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so like, I think to connect this analogy to like your story in the first segment, right? is in the analogy, there are things that we can do, right? Like I can go and trim the leaves. I can go mow the grass. I can go water. But ultimately, the thing that's going to do it is God sending rain and God
The
providing
manure.
the sun and me, God providing the manure.
Then you get through the manure,
Right.
spreading it,
Right.
Spreading your manure all over the earth.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this show is. But I think you did that very well. It's not the same analogy, obviously, because it was a too much water, but like there were things that you could handle, and you handled the things that you could handle pretty well. It looked like pretty well, right? Like you got in, and you were physically doing some of the work. You were managing a bunch of contractors, which I know that was a huge ordeal. You were managing, trying to be a good husband and father, and this new location for a new job, and you're managing all of these things. You did a pretty damn good job. There you go. There's your cuss word, right? But there were still some things that like you couldn't do, right? Like you couldn't quote unquote send the rain or send the sun or all these things. Like you still needed God to do those big things. So for me, it was just a reminder, like in your story, and as I was kind of thinking about this Taylor's parable in Mass the other day, it's like I need to do what I can control, but then go to prayer and keep asking God to do what's only in His control. So I think that's a good full circle moment. I think we'll close there, Shawnee boy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Taylor.
No, dude, it's great to have you back.
Don't make it 3 years before I'm on here again.
It'll be 4. So this was...
That's how long it'll take you to come up with the weird things at Mass to bring up with another 3 years.
Two more thoughts I have to have for Mass for 4 years. So, but it was cool. This is episode 299. So obviously next week we're having the big bash with all, the four co-hosts. But I wanted to bring the old fifth one back for episode 299 to kind of reminisce a little bit, and it was great. So before we go, we don't usually do this with co-hosts, but it has been a while since you've been here. I'm going to let you plug 2 things. Pick your favorite or most current book that you want people to go buy, and your social media or whatever. Only 2, Shaun.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the spelling of my name, that'll be on the podcast, but you can follow me at Twitter and Facebook and all that.
All right, there's your 2. All right.
But the best book that you should buy is probably I'm Catholic, Now What? It's a great resource, whether you've been in the faith your whole life or whether you're getting right back into it. It's a practical survey of the Catholic life and how you can handle it and be the most productive Catholic you possibly can be.
Sweet. All right, Shaun, it was great talking to you again. That is Shaun McAfee. Go get the book. Go connect with him on social media. He'll be back eventually. I will be back next week for our episode 300 bash with all of the co-hosts all together. It's going to be so much fun. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you then. See ya! Thank you guys so much for watching, listening today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube, especially because next week's such a big deal. The 300th episode celebration with all the co-hosts together. So you definitely don't want to miss that. I love you guys, and I'll see you soon.